What's going on, everybody, and welcome back to another video. Today, I'll be bringing you my part 2 of my top 24 running backs. Last week, we did 1 through 12, which had some risky names through, 9 through 12, and today I'm going to bring you 13 through 24, and mostly I'm talking about PPR leagues or half-point PPR. Standards, okay. I think in PPR leagues and half-point PPR, my rankings don't really differ, so yeah, let's just get right into it. So, if you want to see my last week's video where I did 1 through 12, it'll be in the notes above, or the little ding above, or it'll be in the description below. So just hit either link and it'll take you right to the video. But let's get right into it. So at number 13, I have Melvin Gordon. I wanted to put Melvin Gordon so desperately into my my top 12 rather, but he made 13. And the reason for this was mostly because there's a lot of unknowns, right? So he gets traded from the Chargers to the Broncos, division rival. And I think he's going to come in and immediately be the starter, right? Philip Lindsay's a really good player. I think he's a very good player. He's just small. He's not going to get all the workload. And Royce Freeman's gone. I think he actually just signed with the Raiders today. So there's really no one else to compete. Maybe Devontae Booker, if he's still even on the team. It's really Philip Lindsay and Melvin Gordon, which, like I said, I think Philip Lindsay's a good player, but he can't handle for a full workload. He's a small guy. So I think Gordon will come in, automatically be the goal line back. Immediately be the goal line guy. I just think it seems too obvious not to use him. He's a beast. He's a really good player when he's healthy. Like I said, great balance. Great player, great balance. I think he's a great jump cut behind the line of scrimmage. He can catch the ball easy. He's probably the best pass catcher on the team, receiver or running back wise. Philip Lindsay really hasn't done it. And he breaks arm tackles with ease. Great acceleration. I just think he's one of those players that isn't elite. Really, really great. He's one of those guys that isn't the best at anything, but he's good at everything. Really good at everything. The one flaw about Melvin Gordon is he gets injured a lot. In 5 seasons in the NFL, he's played one full 16. And if you don't consider last year because of the holdout, that's still 1 out of 4, which isn't much better. Doesn't ease me, into picking up, doesn't, ease my mind. I worry that Denver also is going to be one of these hot teams that, come in that all the, analysts say, oh my God, Denver's going to be that hot team. They're going to be that team that, Drew Lock's coming back and to start a full season after playing pretty well last year statistically. Philip Lindsay's a 1,000-yard rusher. Melvin Gordon's a beast when healthy. Cortland Sutton made the Pro Bowl last year. I believe had like 1,100, 1,200 yards. Rookie Jerry Jeudy's there. Drafted another rookie receiver. Noah Fant. It's just like a lot of pieces coming together for a dream team kind of setup, if you remember that from Philly. And I just worry that, it's Drew Lock. Drew Lock holds it all together. It's not the other guys. If Drew Lock's good, he'll play, and he'll be good, and he'll make the team good. If not, who's their backup? It was Brandon Allen last year. Joe Flacco's gone. I don't know. So it's on Drew Lock's shoulders if he's going to be good or not, and it can really lead that offense. I think Melvin Gordon's great, and if he really plays up to his full potential, and it plays a full season, I don't see why he couldn't, be a top 10 back. He's proven it in the past. He's been a top 10 RB. He finished 7th in 2016, missing 3 games. 2017 finished 5th, played the full season. 2018 finished 8th while missing 4 games. So seasons where he missed games, he's still a top 10 back. If he stays healthy, he's really, really good. And then let's move on. So number 14, I have Kenyan Drake at the Arizona Cardinals. This one, I'm trying not to make a lot of these drag on, but this one has a lot of talking points. It has a lot of things that, kind of pack into it. So Kenyan Drake, right? I love his talent for a while. Anyone in my fantasy football leagues can tell you that. And I've been a big fan of his talent for a while. I think he's being held back in Miami. Kalen Ballage last year was like the worst running back in the NFL, and they still used him. I don't know if they just don't like Kenyan Drake. I don't know what went on there, because he's too talented of a player to get as limited touches as he got. And that and Frank Gore the year before, I don't know. And I believe he's capable of a full workload, rushing and receiving. I think he should be that guy that gets 200 carries, 40 to 50 catches. I don't see why that's impossible for him. He hasn't really been injured. I believe he got hurt last year. He missed a few games, but that's it, or the year prior, rather. And Arizona is another one of those teams, though, that I worry is going to be like Denver, where they're going to go, oh, well, DeAndre Hopkins is there. Kenyan Drake played very well last year, had big games. Larry Fitzgerald back, Kyler Murray second year. That's everyone's fantasy sleeper this year. Is Kyler Murray. Kyler Murray is going to be probably the second or third quarterback taken off the board because of the rushing ability. Played good last year, but are we ready to really say he's ready to take that next step? I don't know. I get worried, especially with rookie quarterback-led offenses. And who knows if DeAndre Hopkins is going to be good. He probably will be, but, I don't know. But I do like that offense. I mean, it has like a lot of fingers pointing up. Christian Kirk played pretty well in some games last year, too. And I don't think that the Hopkins thing hurts him, because I just think the more weapons you get, the more red zone opportunities you get. And Kenyan Drake's going to be in that goal line situation. He's too explosive a player not to be. He's not a big guy, but he's too quick and too explosive not to be in the goal line package. And I really do like Kenyan Drake as a player. I think he's great. But my only kind of issue with him last year in Arizona was he was pretty inconsistent. I mean, he had 3 games where he was over 100 yards in each, and he finished in those 3 games with 7 touchdowns. I believe one game he scored 4 against the Browns. The remaining 5 games, his highest rushing total was 67 and only had 1 rushing touchdown in that span. So, up and down. I think it changes this year. I don't think there's really a back to compete with. There's Chase Edmonds, who flashed a little bit, and I believe Ito Benjamin's the other one. He was like their 7th round pick, but I think it's his job to lose. But I trust it. I think he's a very good player, and I really believe in talent. That's where I like the 10 more, is not situation. I like the talent more of the player, and I think talent prevails more than situation in most cases. All right, let's move on. So number 15, Miles Sanders. Last year was up and down for him. It really was. Was most impactful in the passing game. He made some big catches in key situation in like real NFL games. Not really for fantasy. I mean, for fantasy, of course, big touchdowns help. But, in real life NFL, in the real Eagles games, he impacted a lot through the air. Really carried the team on his back through the stretch to help them get to a playoff. But I'm not saying that because he wasn't very good in the rushing game. He had some down weeks. I mean, that's for sure. Weeks 1 through 10, he played less than 50% of the snaps in all but 1 week. So he was used under 50%, so not a lead back. Then Jordan Howard got hurt, and they went on bye. Came back from the bye week. Sanders played 70% or more of the team snaps in 5 of 7 games. One of the games he got hurt, so that's something to consider as well. Jordan Howard's gone, so the back looks to be Sanders. I do worry about his goal line situation. He scored 3 touchdowns last year, and rushing, and 3 through the air. So only 3 rushing touchdowns on 179 carries isn't very good. Boston Scott, who's Boston Scott, right? I mean, I don't know if Boston Scott will turn into anything, but maybe they find another kind of big guy to pair with him. It's possible. Boston Scott scored on plays last year from the 2, the 4, and the 7. So he was kind of their goal line guy. I mean, if you score from the 2, and the 4, that's goal line. So, those are touchdowns that Sanders could have gotten and that he wasn't on the field for. He averaged 2.4 yards or 2.4 catches per game from 1 to 10. In weeks 1 to 10, averaged 4 a game to close out the season. And that includes a game where he was hurt. So, he has the chance to be a big player if things go right for him in Philly. I really think that. I think he's one of those guys that he's another one where he does a lot of things pretty good, nothing spectacular. He's pretty quick. He doesn't have top end speed. That's kind of my one concern for him, is I don't think he's very fast. He a lot of times screen pass, or he got into maybe the second level and there's maybe a safety coming after him. The guy chasing him catches him, which it happens to some people, but he's not that speedster. He's pretty quick, good explosiveness, and pretty good hands for a running back. I mean, he's gonna probably catch 50 to 60, maybe more passes next year. It's possible, especially in that Philly offense. I mean, there's really no one there right now. I mean, there's some rookies, but who knows? You know what I mean? Alshon Jeffrey healthy finally. Nelson Aguilar, is he even there? I don't know. It's a lot of things where he could step in and be really, really utilized in the passing game. We just need to see him more used as a runner and more effective, because I don't believe he had a 100-yard game last year rushing. But I mean, I like him. I like the upside. And with these guys, I like to kind of shoot more upside, because what are you drafting him to be? Do you think he's gonna, at his worst? What's his worst? I mean, he finishes 850. He doesn't get utilized a lot in the run game, and then he catches you like 30 to 40 passes. I mean, that's going to be an okay running back, but his upside's high. I mean, what if he rushes for over 1,000 and catches 50 passes, and gets near 10 touchdowns? That's an RB1. That's kind of where I shoot higher. That's why I like guys like Melvin Gordon, who I've seen done before, and Kenyan Drake, who's really good in the passing game, or receiving game rather, and that's kind of why I put those guys higher on my list. I elevate them rather than guys like number 16 for me is Aaron Jones. Now, I might get killed for this one, and I don't care. Aaron Jones, I like the player. I think he's good. I've heard somebody I listen to a lot is Chris Harris, who used to work for ESPN, now has his own podcast, Harris Football, and he's like, I love the player. I personally don't love him. I think he's good. I think he doesn't wow me in any way. Scored like 16 touchdowns, I believe, last year, rushing, and 3 receiving. 19 touchdowns. You don't really... I believe that's how many, but I know it's a ton. So I just don't think you do that again. And they drafted rookie A.J. Dillon really high. I believe he was a second or third round pick. And somebody like Chris Harris says, don't worry about A.J. Dillon if he's not good. And like I just said, I do believe in talent, but also I don't think teams draft a player high not to give him a shot. Not to really say, hey, listen, we drafted A.J. Dillon in the second round. We got to at least give him a shot to do something. And we've seen the running backs, the rookie, high-end running backs, Ronald Jones not be very good. Sony Michel's a first-round pick, and I think he's terrible. And they get the workload, but, so we don't know. A.J. Dillon seems like he's that big dude. He's a huge running back, and he could be the goal line guy that could take over some of those touchdowns. Well, Aaron Jones, without those touchdowns, he did total, I believe, 1,500 yards or more, but I just don't think it could be there, and that could be a 3-headed monster running back. Aaron Jones only played 60% of the snap counts in 6 games last year. 60, that's it. In 6 games, I should say. That's just with Jamal Williams there. If you add A.J. Dillon into the mix, and if they still use Jamal Williams, that could just be a 3-headed, Maj Podge things, put together that I don't know. I don't know if I really want to be a part of it. And he had really a lot of up and down weeks, Aaron Jones rushing. 5 weeks were over 100 yards. Good. If he didn't rush for over 100 yards, he ran for under 69 times. So it really was, he ran for 100 or he ran for under 60 and bailed you out with some touchdowns. And he's not bad in the receiving game either, but with a lot of guys there, I just worry that, I worry about him. I just think his floor is real low. I think he could be the guy that, what if he scores 5 touchdowns next year and barely gets 1,000? Then he's not useful as an RB2, really. He's going to be a low-end RB2. I just think you can shoot for other upside guys and not have as much, being scared to use him every week. But, I still think he's an okay player. Number 17 for me is going to be Le'Veon Bell. Still a fantastic talent. This is another guy to where, we've seen him finish RB1 before. And I don't think it's a lack of talent. I think it was really situational last year. I think he did come off, missing a whole year of football. That's a thing, and you don't get into game shape by not playing games, and I think that's a legit thing too. I still think he's great. I watched his highlight film. I found a YouTube clip, and the dude makes great moves. There just wasn't lanes for him. A lot of it was his highlights were getting like 5-yard rushes where he made a dude miss or spun out of a guy, or he did that thing he always did in Pittsburgh where he stopped behind the line of scrimmage and really saw his gap and then hit it. Not a fast player, but he has great explosiveness. He can take off quick, and he has that really short area bounciness. He really can shift left and right, and short areas make guys miss. It's not long speed. It's chop you down, make you miss, get past the first guy, past the second guy. You're not going to get a ton of big plays, but I just think Bell's too good of a player that his reduction can repeat from last year. Ranked 16th in yards of scrimmage, right? 16th isn't terrible. And the lack of touchdowns killed him. I think he had 3 or 4 last year, which killed you. It really did kill you. And after his week 1 performance too, he really did look like he was going to be using the passing game. And then Sam Darnold got mono, I believe. He scored a touchdown. It didn't work out for him. I just don't think it's possible that he's that bad again. And he was 11th in rushing attempts, so it's not like he didn't get the ball. He was 7th. He had the 7th most catches from running backs with 66, 8th most touches in the entire NFL. I just don't think you really, you can pass up on a guy that's so talented, and hopefully a better situation this year. Sam Darnold entering his 3rd season, hopefully can kind of finally, get the season put together. They finished 7-9, so it's not like they were terribly horrible last year. It's just the offensive line really crapped the bed, and Sam Darnold really was under pressure all the time, and Le'Veon Bell just didn't have areas to run. Steelers fans are going to tell you that he sucks and he's not worth the money. He's a great player. Don't get it twisted. He's one of those guys that If he's right and he runs for 1,200 yards and catches for another 500 and he scores double-digit touchdowns, 50, 60 catches, are you going to be surprised? Because I personally will not. I will not be shocked at all. LeVeon Bell is probably one of the guys that I'm really targeting this year because he's such a good player. Moving on to number 18, another one of those really high upside guys. I don't think he's the most talented player. It's Chris Carson. So Chris Carson, I mean, probably one of the most interesting names on this list. I don't think he's a great player, but I think he's a good player. I think he's good. He's big, he's strong, great balance, has kind of that always falling forward mentality. He gets hit, the goal line will fall forward. First down, he can always just make the guy miss enough to get past the first down marker. And that's something I can really appreciate. I think it's a good talent to have. It reminds me a lot of James Conner, which we'll talk about in a little bit, actually. He finished 5th in the NFL in rushing attempts and rushing yards in only 15 games, missed a game. Rushed for 15 or more yards, or 15 more times attempts in all but 2 games last year. And one of the games he got hurt. Rushed for 20 or more times in 8 games. So 8 games, half of your fantasy football season, he was getting you 20 or more carries. Not much of a receiving back. I believe he caught 37 passes, which actually is pretty good. It's a lot of dump offs. It's a lot of off the play action, maybe a few screens, or a lot of Russell Wilson running around and kind of just flicking it out to him. So nothing really designed towards him or for him exactly. And not much competition for carries, right? Marshawn Lynch might come back. I heard a report of that. I mean, who knows? Rashad Penny, who knows if he even returns? He tore his ACL. And before that, too, he didn't really make a huge impact. I think he was a good player, too. I think he's not, terrible. I think he's okay. But, I mean, coming off an ACL, who knows? The main concern, I guess 2 main concerns, was he fumbled 7 times last year, and he actually got kind of benched for Rashad Penny last year. And that's the other game where he didn't rush for over 15 attempts, was he got kind of benched by Rashad Penny, or for Rashad Penny, because he kept fumbling. If that keeps up, the fumbling issues, I mean, Pete Carroll can't have it, right? You can't have 7 fumbles in a year as a running back. That's just going to open up another door. Keep the door open for another player to maybe come in and prove himself, or at least get a shot. And that's definitely not what we want for fantasy. So, I worry. And the injuries. I mean, he's been injured the last 2-3 seasons, and he finished over 1,100 yards both those seasons, but he just has to stay healthy. He cannot stay, on the field, especially when it comes to the end of the year. And they need him for a playoff run. I mean, the Seahawks came into last year with Travis Homer, I believe, and Marshawn Lynch as their running backs. Marshawn Lynch is barely even in the NFL. I don't even think he cares, really. So, but the one thing I will say about Chris Carson is he's a big dude. He's going to probably get you near 7 to 10 touchdowns. And the Seattle offense, it's legitimately, no matter what you put around him, it's going to be good. It's going to be like Aaron Rodgers. I mean, he's got Devontae Adams at receiver and nothing else. He's got DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett, Greg Olson's there for another year. Maybe Will Dissly comes back. No matter what, Russell Wilson's going to put that offense in scoring position, which is why I like Chris Carson a lot there. Number 17, Devin Singletary. He's going to be other people's sleeper. I think this year he's the big guy that I've always been hearing is, oh man, Devin Singletary, you have him up to 10, 11, 12, and I don't. I think he's going to be a good player. He's short, stocky, breaks a lot of arm tackles, also pretty good balance, more of an accelerator, than I would say a speedster. He's another guy that gets kind of caught from behind at times. And he really did constantly get caught from behind on long runs, which is kind of disappointing, and kind of like Miles Sanders. Miles Sanders is faster. Miles Sanders doesn't get caught nearly as much as him, but Devin Singletary is still a pretty good player. I mean, he catches a lot of screens and flare passes, which is good for fantasy, but I wanted to see more design stuff for him, which, I mean, screens are, but flare him out the receiver. You don't really have a lot of talent at receiver. I mean, I guess now you do with Cole Beasley and Stephon Diggs, John Brown there, but I just want to see him more utilized, and he didn't really catch on till late. I mean, there's no Frank Gore this year, which was last year. But they drafted rookie Zach Moss, I believe, in the 3rd round. So there could be a battle or at least a timeshare there. And that kind of worries me, but he's another guy where I think he's talented enough. If that offense really can put it together, if Josh Allen can put it all together, a lot of potential there. All right, at number 20, I have Leonard Fournette. Now, Leonard Fournette, I don't think he's a good player. I really don't. I don't think he's horrible. I just think he's fine. He's not really that explosive. He's a big dude that he's supposed to be able to handle a full workload, but then he gets hurt every year. I mean, look at this game against Tennessee. I think it's the funniest thing. I remember watching this game live. It was week 3. Rushed. These are every one of his rushes. I'm going to list them out for you. 5, -3, 2, -7, 0, -4, 1, 6, 0, 4, 2, 0, 0, -5, -1, 9. Then he ran for 69 yards on a one that was wide open. Ran for 2, 0, 3. So one run, he ran for 69 yards. And he finished that game with 66 total yards. That's just ridiculous. I mean, he didn't rush for over 10 yards. He only ran positive, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 10 of his rushes out of his, 20 were positive runs. I mean, that's just nothing over 10 yards. That's just ridiculous. 1 over 10 yards. Ridiculous. So, if you rush for 69 yards on one run and you only end up the game with 66 total rushing yards, I just think I can't believe it. I really don't believe it. If you take out that 69-yard run, he finished the game with 14 carries for -3 yards. That's ridiculous. And he's an idiot, not an idiot, but I mean, he's a knucklehead, I guess, if that's what you want to call him. He's really drama. I mean, he wants out of Jacksonville. He's always talking. He's always on Twitter tweeting stuff, and he's always in kind of like a headline. Like I said, he's always doing something. I personally think he gets traded or he runs his mouth out of Jacksonville. He's always hurt. Played 13 games, 8 games in 15 last year, which is good. But I'm not impressed. I mean, if they decide to use him, he already got his 5th-year option declined. So he's not coming back after next year unless they re-sign him, which I doubt. But I mean, they could decide, hey, let's just run this dude into the ground. We got Gardner Minshew, let's see what he could really do this year. They're still looking for their franchise quarterback guy to see if it's Gardner. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. They could just run him into the ground and he could have a season like last year. And last year too, I mean, he played really well, statistically, but he had 67 catches, and that's not going to repeat. I believe he had over 60 or 70 catches. That's not going to happen again. That was all dump-offs. That was dump-off and screens. I just don't think that's going to happen. And you can't play him a ton of snaps because he gets hurt all the time. So he's just another player that I'm not really wowed by, and I'm not really buying into. The reason I have him at 20 and not even probably on this list or farther down is just because if they do give him the workload like he did this year, he was a useful fantasy back. He only scored 3 rushing touchdowns, which is crazy because how many carries he had. But if he puts it all together and he actually can, be the main back and whatever, he has a lot of upside. That's why I have him at 20 over some more guys coming up here in a minute. Number 21, I have James Conner, Pittsburgh Steeler. He's super good when he's healthy. I shouldn't say super good. I think he's a good player, a pretty good player. He doesn't have the speed, or he isn't big. I mean, he's really big. He's not fast or quick. He's another one of those guys that has the really short, tight space kind of elusiveness where he can kind of make the first tackler miss, sometimes where he can get that first down. And I appreciate that, like I said. But, he has the ability to shed tacklers in the secondary because he's a big dude and really just kind of break arm tackles easy. He's a good pass catcher. And I mean, look, he comes back getting Big Ben. No more, Devin Hodges or, Duck Hodges, whatever, or Mason Rudolph. It's Big Ben. If Big Ben can play healthy or be healthy, I like James Conner. I mean, the big issue with him, Conner, is injuries. Played 14 games, 13 games, and 10 games in the past 3 seasons. Can be one of the, great players in the NFL. One of those guys where it takes over, where it's not really, I think, total talent. I think it's a lot of good situation that benefits him. So, I mean, if he comes back with Big Ben, and he can really if he can stay healthy and Big Ben, I don't see why 1,000 yards, 40 to 50 catches, that's what he did the season before. Why can't that be a realm of possibility? If he can stay healthy. That's the big question, if he can stay healthy. I think he's a good enough player. And I don't know about any other running backs there, but I do like James Conner. Number 22, I have Mark Ingram. Huge on Mark Ingram last year. I loved him. I had him on my fantasy team. Dude rode me to a championship. Good. I think he's a good player. I think he gets the most overlooked. He didn't make the Pro Bowl, but I think that was because he was on the Ravens and he had a lot of touchdowns. Barely finished over 1,000 yards. I hated the way they used him last year in Baltimore. I freaking hated it. I mean, they just didn't give him enough carries. So many games where he bailed you out with touchdowns. He had 10 on the ground and 5 through the air on only 25 catches, which is going to have to come down. I mean, catching a touchdown in 25% of your catches. If that happened for Christian McCaffrey, he had 25 touchdowns this year. You know what I mean? So I just think it's just kind of a thing where I don't see Mark Ingram really repeating it at least receiving wise. I mean, if he could be the guy that runs for 1,000 yards, again, or barely under 1,000 and gets you 8 to 10 touchdowns, he's going to be fantasy relevant for you. He's going to be a good RB2 or flex. And he's on the best team in the NFL, or one of the best teams. They broke a record for rushing attempts in the season. The big issue is J.K. Dobbins is there. They drafted him high. J.K. Dobbins is a good player, and I don't really know what that means. They did have Gus Edwards the last 2 years, rushed for over 700 yards both seasons. Edwards last year, averaged 8.3 carries a game and had a legit role. He really came in to, take some carries away from Mark Ingram, which I didn't like. Ingram only played 60% of the snaps in 2 games. And, I mean, some of those, honestly, the Ravens were just blowing people out. I mean, like, week 1 against against Miami, they won, 45-3 or something crazy. So, but still, 60% of the snaps in 2 games, I mean, almost everyone above that has a higher snap total, or snap percentage. And Lamar Jackson is a goal line TD stealer. Just a rusher in general. I mean, had 7 touchdowns, Lamar Jackson. 176 rushes and over 1,200 yards last season rushing. I mean, even if that's cut in half, which it won't be. I mean, he's gonna be pushing 1,000, pushing 5 to 7 touchdowns, because that's kind of max for quarterbacks. If Lamar Jackson, he's not going to take a step back. So it's very limited for Mark Ingram. But we see him at what I think his situation would be is he's going to get you, 12 to 15 carries a week, 2-3 catches maybe, if that. I mean, he only had 25 catches last year, but he has the ability. I just think that his touchdowns are going to take a step back. Maybe not rushing as much, but his receiving definitely will. And that's kind of what worries me the most. But I still think Mark Ingram's a really good player. Not a speedster at all, but he's another one of those guys like James Conner, who breaks arm tackles, always makes the positive plays. Just really good, a really good player. Not great, not amazing, but he just makes those little big plays, not the 99-yard rush, but he makes the play that should have been -3, -5 yards, and he gets back to the line of scrimmage. Or he runs up the middle and he makes the one guy miss where, someone like Gus Edwards would have just fell down. I just think the big issue with him is, what's J.K. Dobbins' role? Will he play right away? Will he take over as the main guy? Or will they be like a 1-2 punch where maybe they're split backfield? And that's not really what you want for fantasy. But if Mark Ingram can remain the goal line back, because that's where Baltimore is going to be a majority of the time, then I think you're going to be okay pushing 8-10 touchdowns of Mark Ingram. And I mean, you can't predict touchdowns, but that's kind of what you're banking on now with Mark Ingram. And 23, man, this one sucks for me. David Johnson. I didn't want to put him on this list, but I felt like it was needed. And this one's pure situation, kind of, I should say. I shouldn't say pure then, but it's a lot of situation. David Johnson, I mean, hasn't been good for almost 2 years. Last year, there's that one play where he ran a sweep outside, and it looked like me out there playing running back. It was ridiculous. I mean, I just don't know what to think about him. Is he finally healthy? Will he stay healthy? I don't know. He's the main back in Houston. I mean, Lamar Miller's gone after he tore his ACL and wasn't very good there anyway. Carlos Hyde is a free agent after rushing for over 1,000, I believe 7 touchdowns. If Carlos Hyde can do it, I mean, if David Johnson can stay healthy, there's no shot he doesn't. David Johnson's still, I think, a good player if healthy, or at least a better player than Carlos Hyde. And I don't want to say that, I know he's going to be the main back. I mean, they did get him in that trade. I think that was mostly to get rid of Hopkins and take a shot on a player that has been good in the past. And we've seen him. We've seen him finish as the number 1 running back in fantasy football. I mean, I think he totaled 2,000 yards that season back in, I think it was 2017. So it seems like it's been forever. But if David Johnson can really do it, I mean, if he could really be healthy, put it all together, and that Houston offense stays, pretty good, I don't see a reason why he couldn't be an RB2, possibly an RB1. A lot of upside. That's kind of where I'm aiming. I mean, his downside's pretty high. That's what I'm saying too, is just if he's not healthy, he's not healthy, and it's going to be Duke Johnson's kind of job. So David Johnson's another one that I kind of didn't want to put on this list. I think he's a little bit farther down, but I just think we've seen him do it before, and the upside's so high that he has to kind of be on this list no matter what. And number 24 for me, it was between DAndre Swift or Jonathan Taylor. And I went with DAndre Swift. I think he has the easier path to starting role in Detroit. Kerryon Johnson, I think, is a good player. I think he's one of those guys, another one of those guys that's good to great, not really amazing at anything, but he's the really thick guy that breaks tackles, pushes forward. He's good. But I think DAndre Swift has the chance to be great. Has the chance to be pretty elite, like has the easier starting path in Detroit rather than Jonathan Taylor, who I think Marlon Mack's a pretty good player still, and they have Naheem Hines, and I believe that Jordan Wilkins is there too, I believe still. So it's a little bit of a crowded backfield where you might have touches here and there from other players that might limit him. And Kerryon Johnson for Detroit is hurt pretty regularly, so. And he was good when he was healthy, and it still is a good player, but I don't know about the health. He can never stay healthy, And like I said, I wanted to put Jonathan Taylor on the list, but Marlon Mack is a good player, and they use a lot of other players in the backfield. And for DAndre Swift, I mean, he's a great player at Georgia. If he can come in and show off his talent immediately in the NFL, I mean, he can make seriously like a quick impact and be the starter, because I think they're kind of done with Kerryon Johnson. Like I said, I think he's a good player and he showed some potential, but he just can't stay on the field. And that offense, Detroit fans probably say this every year, but I mean, Marvin Jones is a touchdown weapon, a good receiver. Danny Amendola is a great slot guy. I think Kenny Golladay, I'll make a list on my top receivers, but he's 6 for me. He's that guy outside the elite 5. He's next. I think he's a great player. I still think Matthew Stafford is one of the most underrated quarterbacks in the NFL. I think he's great. He's the guy that he's changed offenses so much. He's had really no talent. I shouldn't say no talent, but he's had spotty talent, terrible coaching around him. And he always makes it happen. If Matt Stafford can stay on the field with that plethora of weapons, and TJ Hawkinson, I didn't even mention him. I think they can finally put together a good season in Detroit. Who knows? But it was looking pretty good for Stafford and the Lions last year before Stafford ended up getting hurt. If Stafford can stay on the field, then that offense will hum. And if DAndre Swift can kind of take the main role, then I'm pretty confident with him being a top 24 back for sure. And that's the issue I run into with fantasy football. I don't like to take the shot on the rookies. I take the shot on the guys that I've seen before do it, and I think that they can maybe do it again, like the David Johnsons of the world. Forget that. Take the shot on DAndre Swift. And that's kind of where I'm changing my philosophy up from where I have in the past is forget like the guys at the end of this list, like James Conner. Let's see, James Conner, Leonard Fournette. Forget those guys. David Johnson. Take DAndre Swift. Take Jonathan Taylor and see what they can do. They're high talented rookies. They really played well in college. Take the shot on the unknown, because you kind of know what you're getting in David Johnson, unless that slight percentage of him coming back to his 2017 form really comes through, which I don't know if it will. I doubt it. But I don't know. I just think you'd maybe take the shot on DAndre Swift. I only have him a little bit lower because, he could just not play. We've seen, like I said, Ronald Jones, Sony Michel. A lot of these guys I don't think talented, where I think Ronald Jones is actually okay, but Ronald Jones had 30 carries. He was a first or second round pick. He had 30 carries in his rookie season. He just wasn't ready to play, and we don't know if DAndre Swift's ready to play or Jonathan Taylor. So, but that's going to do it for my list. So I'll run through them real quick for you. So my list was number 13. I had Melvin Gordon. That's kind of where my list stops for, I think, safer guys. A lot of this, the 14 through 23 is more high upside but big downside guys. Kerryon Johnson, or rather, what am I saying? Number 13, Melvin Gordon. Number 14, Kenyan Drake. Number 15, Miles Sanders. 16, Aaron Jones. 17, LeVeon Bell. 18, Chris Carson. 19, Devin Singletary. 20, Leonard Fournette. 21, James Conner. 22, Mark Ingram. 23, David Johnson. 24, DAndre Swift. And then I guess just 25, I would say Jonathan Taylor. So, but yeah, that's my list. Like I said, this is mostly for PPR leagues or half-point PPR. I think standard is whatever. I don't really play a lot of standard leagues. And I think PPR, full point, and half point are kind of the same. I don't think a lot of things really change for that. So, but yeah, those are my rankings. If I had to change anything from my previous list, I would say maybe Melvin Gordon gets into my top 12 over Clyde Edwards-Helaire, because I had him at 12 on my 1 through 12 list. Just because of the unknown, but I think Clyde Edwards-Helaire is a really good running back. I did a Joe Burrow scouting video that I don't know if you go, check it out if you want. But but constantly Clyde Edwards-Helaire would catch my eye while watching these games. I'd be really amazed by what I saw from him. And I'm glad he got to the Chiefs. But, Melvin Gordon would be higher if it wasn't so injury, if the injuries weren't so constant with him. So, But yeah, that's my list. I want to thank you guys so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. Let me know if you guys, what you guys think about the list, who you guys would change, who you would include, who shouldn't be on the list, who's high, who's low. Let me know whatever you guys think. I really appreciate you guys taking the time to view my video. And yeah, follow me on Twitter at @EvankTheTank. It'll be in the description as well. And I'll see you guys next time.